A very warm welcome to all our viewers. This is Anjali from Simplilearn, and today we'll be looking at the installation for the tool Chef. As you probably already know, Chef is a configuration management tool. So that basically means that Chef is a tool which can automate the entire process of configuring multiple systems. It also comes with a variety of other functionalities which you can check out in our video on what is Chef and the Chef tutorial. So before we move on to the installation process, let me just explain to you in brief the architecture of Chef. So Chef has three components. There's the workstation, which is where the system admin sits, and he or she writes the configuration files here. Your second system is the server. The server is where all these configuration files are stored. And finally, you have the client or the node systems. So these are the systems that require the configuration. You can have any number of clients, but for our demo, to keep it simple, we'll just have one client. Now I'm using my Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager, as you can see here. I'll have two machines, the master and the node. Both of these are CentOS 7 machines. As of the server, we'll be using this as a service on the cloud. So let's begin. Let's have a look at our master system first. This is my master system. The terminal's open over here, and the terminal color here, it's black background with green text. And this is my node system. So the terminal here has a black background with white text. So you can differentiate between the both. So we start at our master system. The first thing we need to do is we need to download the Chef DK. So you can write wget, which is the command for downloading, and then go to your browser and just type Chef DK here. The first link. So here you have different versions of Chef DK. Depending on the operating system that you're using, you need to select the appropriate one. I'm using the Red Hat Enterprise version, and that's number 7. So I'm using CentOS 7. So this is my link for downloading Chef DK. Just copy this link and go back to your terminal and paste it here. So your Chef DK is being downloaded. This will take a while. Right after we download the Chef DK, our next step is to install it on our system. So our Chef DK is downloaded. Now let's install it. So guys, this is the version of Chef DK that you have downloaded. So make sure this is exactly what you type down here too. So great, our Chef DK is installed. So basically our installation for the workstation is done right now. But just so you understand how the flow is, we'll also write a sample recipe on our workstation. So before we do that, let's first create a folder. My folder name is Chef Repo, basically the Chef repository. And let's move into this folder. Okay, so we're in. Next, what we need to do is, as I mentioned earlier, all your recipes will be within a cookbook. So let's create a folder which will hold all our cookbooks. And let's move into this too. Okay, so our next stage is to create the actual cookbook within which we'll have our recipe. So the command for creating the cookbook is chef generate cookbook sample. So sample is the name of my cookbook. So guys, please notice here, cookbooks is the directory that I created, which will hold all our cookbooks. And here cookbook is the keyword. So sample is that one cookbook that we are creating under our folder cookbooks. And our cookbook's being created. Great, so that's done. Moving into our cookbook. Okay, so when our cookbook sample was created, automatically there's this hierarchical structure associated with it. So let's have a look at this hierarchical structure to understand what our cookbook sample exactly is before we move on. So the command for looking at a hierarchical structure is tree. So as you see here, within our cookbook, we have a folder recipes, and under this there's the default.rb recipe. This is where we'll be creating our recipe. So we'll just alter the content of default.rb. So let's move on to finally writing our recipes. So we'll move into this recipes folder first. So now we'll open our recipe default.rb in gedit. So the recipe for this particular demo is to install the HTTPD package on our client node. That is basically your Apache server. And we'll also be hosting a very simple web page. So let's begin. So the recipes in Chef is written in Ruby. So I'll explain you the recipe in a while. Okay, so the first line is where you install HTTPD. The second line for service is where you start or enable the HTTPD service on the client node. That's our first task. The second part's where we need to create our web page. So this is the part where your web page will be stored. If you have written any HTML file previously, you know that this is probably like a default path where our web pages are created. Yep, that's it. So this is the content that will be displayed on your web page if everything works right. And I'm pretty sure it will. So now we can save our recipe, and that's done. Close your gedit. So now that we have created the recipe, all our work at the workstation is completed. The next thing we do is we move on to the server. So as I mentioned earlier, we'll be using the server as a service on the cloud. So go to your browser and here just type manage.chef.io. So this is the homepage of your Chef server. Click here to get started. We need to first create an account for using the Chef server. This is completely free. We just need to give our email ID and a few other details. It's in fact a lot like creating an account on Facebook or Instagram. Fill in all the details. Check the terms of service box. So the next thing you need to do is go back to your inbox and verify your email ID. So I have my inbox opened here on my Windows machine. So this is my inbox. You would have received a mail from Chef Software. Just click on this link to verify it and create your password. And that's done. So let's continue this on our workstation machine. So type in your username and password. So the first time you log into your Chef server, you'll have this pop-up appear where you need to create a new organization. So create your organization. So this organization is basically the name that will be associated with a collection of the client machines. First thing you do, go to your administration tab and download the starter kit. So guys, when you're doing this part, make sure that you're on your workstation. That is, you're opening your Chef server on the workstation because you need this folder to be installed here. You save the file. So this gets downloaded. So the Chef starter kit is the key to connecting your workstation with the server and the server with the node. So basically it has a tool called Knife, which we'll come across later in our demo. This Knife is what takes care of all the communication and the transferring of cookbooks between the three machines. In our case, the two machines, the workstation and the node, and the one server. So let's go back to our root directory. So our Chef starter zip file is within our downloads folder. What we do first is we'll move the zip folder into our cookbooks folder and then we'll unzip it there because our cookbooks folder is the one that contains the recipe and that is where we require knife tool command to be present so we can send these recipes over to the server. So we'll just check the contents of our cookbooks right now to ensure that our Chef starter.zip file is within the cookbooks. Yep, so it's here. So next thing we do is we need to unzip this folder. Great, so that's unzipped. And this means that our workstation and our server are now linked. So we just need to use the knife command tool to transfer or to upload our recipes, which we created on the workstation, onto the server. So before we execute this command, we need to move into our cookbooks directory. As you know, that is where we unzipped our Chef starter kit. So that is where our knife command is present too. And now let's execute the knife command. So it's knife, cookbook, upload, and sample. So as you probably recall, sample is the name of the cookbook that we created. And within sample, we created our recipe, which is default.rb. So we're uploading the entire cookbook onto the server. Execute the command. Great, so our cookbook's uploaded. Now let's check this on our server. So move to your browser where you opened your Chef server and go to policy. So here you go. This is the cookbook we uploaded sample and it's the first time we uploaded it. So the version 0.1.0, the first version. Now what you would notice is if you go to the nodes tab, there are no nodes present. So if you have no nodes, you basically have no machine to execute your cookbooks. And the nodes are not seen right now because we have not configured them yet. So that's the next thing we need to do. All this so far was done on your master machine. Now we'll move on to the node machine. So before moving on, let's just check the IP of our node machine. So that's our IP. Note this down somewhere. And now we move back to our workstation. As we already saw that we uploaded a sample workbook, next thing we need to make sure that our server and node are able to communicate with each other. So again, we use the knife tool for this too. The command here is knife bootstrap and enter the IP address of your node, which we just checked. We'll be logging in there. So we'll be using the node as the root user. And then we also need to specify our root password for the node. And we give a name to this node. So this is the name by which we'll be identifying our node at the server. So as you've probably noticed here, we're using the term SSH, which is a secure shell. So it basically provides a channel of secure communication between two machines in an unsafe environment. Okay, so it's done. So if your command has executed right, which in our case, as we can see, has, our chef server and our chef node must be able to communicate with each other. So if this is so, we should be able to send the cookbook that we previously uploaded from our workstation onto the server, now from our server to our node. So to do that, before we move on to the node machine, we need to go back to our chef server. Let's refresh this page. And as you see here, previously under the nodes tab, we did not have any node mentioned. Now we do. Chef node, which is the node we wanted to identify our node by, which is a Centos platform. And that's our IP. So it's active for 2 hours. That's the uptime. Last check-in. The last time we checked into our node was a minute back. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So now we'll create a run list and we'll add our sample to this run list. So just click on your node. And you'll see the small arrow here in the end. Click on that, edit run list. And under available recipes, we have our cookbook sample present. So drag and drop this to the current run list and accept it. Okay, so now that we updated our run list, our recipe is sent to our node. What we next need to do is that we need to execute this at our node. So now we'll move on to our node machine. Chef client is the command to execute your. So while this recipe is executing, you can see what exactly is happening. Our recipe was to install HTTP package first, which is your Apache server. So the first line, that's done and it's up to date. The second line, it's enabled. Third line, the service is started. And the fourth line is where your contents created for the web page at this very location. So by the look of this, everything should work fine. So how do we check this? We can just go to our browser and in the search bar, just type localhost. And there you go. So our HTTP package, which is the Apache server, is installed and our sample web page is also hosted. Congratulations on completing the chef demo. If you have any doubts regarding the demo, please put them in the comment section below and we'll definitely reply to you. So I hope you guys really liked the video. If you did, please hit the like button. Also subscribe to our channel. If you haven't so yet, we have more installation videos coming up. So stay tuned. This is Anjali signing off. See you all next time.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.